They preach that the strong, independent woman is a constant presence, an unchanging truth. But it's all been a lie that was fed to you. Strength in women goes back to Eve, but this 20th century lie was sold to weaken her. Real strength wasn't about detaching from a man. It was about the total devotion to him. The unshakable fortress of her family, the keeper of the home, the lifeline of her bloodline. She didn't compete with her man. She stood with him, building, protecting, and enduring. Her worth wasn't measured by solo acts, but by loyalty, by legacy, and by the family she held together. Then came the theorists. In 1949, Simone de Beauvoir published a book called The Second Sex. She declared, one is not born, but becomes a woman. She argued that femininity itself was a social construct, and that marriage and motherhood were traps, domestic slavery dressed up as love. To her, the wife was an oppressed class, and liberation meant escaping the private sphere entirely. It was a savage declaration. Reject the roles you inherited, even if they've been the backbone of civilizations for generations, no matter the cost. She stated that femininity isn't genetic, it's social programming. And she tries to unravel the myth that women are naturally born as women, but only as strong, independent icons. The Second Sex is regarded as a groundbreaking work of feminist philosophy, starting inspiration's point of the second wave of feminism. Beauvoir's two factors explain the evolution of women's condition was participation in production and freedom from the reproductive slavery. She writes that motherhood left women riveted to their body like an animal and made it possible for men to dominate her and nature. She argued that Christianity, especially as practiced in most traditions outside of the Germanic world, became a tool for subordinating women. Her ideas on prostitution, with as the freest women in ancient Greece, were neither matrons nor common prostitutes, but hetairas, courtesans who intellectually and culturally enjoyed a level of independence that married women and typical prostitutes didn't. Her ideas shimmered over a decade. And then, in 1963, Betty Friedan lit the match with The Feminine Mystique, a book that had a message she named The Problem That Has No Name. It was the study of American housewives who, despite having families, despite having homes, and material comfort, still felt unfulfilled. Friedan claimed it was because they had traded their individuality for domesticity. The magazines, the schools, the advertisers, all part of a conspiracy to chain women to washing machines. She coined the term feminine mystique to describe the societal assumption that women could find fulfillment through housework, marriage, sexual passivity, and child-rearing alone. Friedan's claim was that the feminine mystique denied women their basic human need to grow. Because that basic need for development was stunted, Friedan maintained women will remain unhappy and children will grow up with unfulfilled and neurotic mothers. Friedan also argued that the feminine mystique hurt women both personally and professionally, and for women as well as for men, identity was largely cultivated through a sense of personal achievement, primarily through a career. Friedan drew on statistics and personal accounts to expose how deeply women were influenced by the ideals of the feminine mystique. Because by the late 1950s, 14 million girls were engaged before turning 17, and the average bride was just about 20 years old. Women's presence in higher education had declined from 47% in 1920 to only 35% by 1958. In the mid-1950s, 6 out of 10 female students abandoned their studies and married early, leaving school out of fear that pursuing education too long would make them undesirable in the marriage market. The American housewife, who properly performed her domestic duties, was deemed by the American media to be the envy of the woman throughout the world. Friedan pushed to demolish this, that domesticity was fulfilling, that housework was a career of importance, and that silence was contentment. By reframing marriage and motherhood as inherently limiting a woman, and work outside the home as the only path to selfhood, these books rewired the aspirations of an entire generation. The strong, independent woman was no longer the wife who kept her household through war and famine. She was now the woman who needed no man at all. Governments and corporations were quick to see the potential. During World War II, women had been drafted into factories with slogans like Rosie the Riveter, "We can do it," not just to fill jobs, but to reshape identity. And after the war, they tried to send women back to the kitchen, but the seed of individualism was already planted. By the 1970s, second-wave feminism carried BEAUVOIR's and FRIEDAN's arguments to their logical extreme. Liberation not with men, but from men. The National Organization for Women to mark the 50th anniversary of women's suffrage. Tens of thousands of women marched in New York City, Washington, D.C., and other cities demanding equal pay, equal opportunity, and access to abortion. Title IX prohibited sex discrimination in federally funded educational programs, including sports. The Miss magazine, founded by Gloria Steinem, first issue featured Wonder Woman on the cover with the slogan, "Wonder Woman for President." It, of course, covered topics like domestic violence, workplace discrimination, reproductive rights. Helen Reddy's song, "I Am Woman," became the unofficial feminist anthem. Roe v. Wade legalized abortion nationwide, cementing reproductive rights as a feminist battleground. Hollywood and pop music made it catchy, advertising made it glorious, and here's the irony. The same corporations selling empowerment were also making women more dependent than ever, not on husbands, but on endless consumption, corporate ladders, and the approval of industries that profited from their restlessness. Companies began testing this liberated woman as marketing. Virginia Slim cigarettes was launched, huge in the 70s, tied smoking to women's liberation. Charlotte Perfume by Revlon featured women in pantsuits striding confidently into offices. The Enjoyly perfume ad late in the 70s, "I could bring home the bacon and fry it up in a pan," selling the idea that the modern woman could do it all, career and domestic duties, without complaint.
I can put the wash on the line, feed the kids, get dressed, pass out the kisses, and get to work by 5 and 9. 'Cause I'm a woman, Angelie.
Charles of the Ritz creates Angelie, the new 8-hour perfume for the 24-hour woman.
I can bring home the bacon, Angelie, fry it up in a pan, and never, never, never let you forget your romance. 'Cause I'm a woman, Angelie.
So instead of being fulfilled through devotion, we were told to hold out for self-definition via career, consumption, and detachment. By the 90s, the strong, independent woman was a commercial product. Beauty ads sold to her to invest in herself. Rom-coms told her love was optional, but a corner office was essential. Even self-help books that promised that solitude was the ultimate prize. And now in the age of social media, women are not building a home along with their husbands. They are building a following without any. No longer raising children, but chasing validation. Her quote-unquote strength is measured in detachment from marriage, family, and from duty. Now the girl boss emerged. Invest in yourself became the slogan and birthed a generation of spending, consuming, thriving on the illusion of autonomy. The self-care industrial complex, what once meant rest or reflection, became an excuse to purchase overpriced items, retreats, and subscription boxes filled with serums no one needs. Self-care was rebranded as self-spending. The soft life and hot girl summers, Instagram and TikTok flooded with women equating liberation to travel pics, luxury brunches, and relationship detachment. Real-life responsibility was traded for a curated feed of vacations and champagne glasses. The influencer hustle, be your own boss, became selling shapewear, meal shakes, and drop-ship trinkets from a phone, always chasing the next post to prove they're winning. The business model was the image as their product. The treat-yourself economy, every convenience, heartbreak, and stressor became justification for retail therapy. A marketing dream tied emotional relief to the checkout button. Luxury feminism. The narrative shift to say empowerment means designer handbags, fine dining, and this manifesting abundance idea. The poor man's values of family, stability, and loyalty were ridiculed, while consumerism became the proof of worth. This rise of the boss babe idea becomes the norm, and the women of the past just fades into the unknown. The very women that carried the weight of generations on their backs, raised children with no internet, no distractions or babysitters. They kept families alive through famine, through war, through the kind of scarcity most modern women today couldn't imagine without a panic attack. They built empires with their men and stability along with their men. No hashtags, no slogans. It was on discipline, sacrifice, and loyalty to something greater than themselves. Greater than themselves. Because real strength was never about rejecting men. It was never about having disdain for men, hatred for men, belittling men. It was about standing beside them, building something that could outlast the both of you. But now, women scrolls through these lives, measuring their strength in likes and follows, legacy no deeper than their hashtags, and fantasized empires built on quicksand. These women today, they use the term strong for women who walked away from men, became consumers of material status instead of virtue, and over-sexualized thrill-vores with a constant inch they need scratched by their next prey. They became the exact thing that very few men are, only to devalue the majority of men that go by men's design. They don't know what value really is. They've lost sight of what it means to carry the weight, not just for themselves, but for their family, for the legacy, for our nation. They lack the understanding of what men bring to society, the sacrifices, the burdens, the battles fought quietly and without fanfare. While men have built, led, provided, and protected, too many women chase self-fulfillment, self-expression, self-centered independence. And when the manipulation is caught, options run dry. When the men who once held their world moves on, suddenly they cry out on social media. They complain about how unfair the world is, how no one respects them, and how they never were appreciated. But the truth is, they chose otherwise and waited too long to choose the sacrifices over oneself. And now they're shocked to find that life doesn't owe them sympathy. What happens when men see no reason to stay? Men walk away, and not because they don't want to build, protect, be leaders and guiders of a nation, but because they're not valued for it. It's a thankless job mandated from man-hating structures and women, because they watch too many sacrifices made one-sidedly, commitments broken without consequence, and love treated like a disposable commodity. So when men decide to stand against what these women deem, they are looked at as wrong, not a man, useless to society, all while women were given their way of life from them. Men refuse to be disrespected, belittled, used, or backup plans to fall back on when things don't go the woman's way. And they have every right to give up, since society sees them as disposable. So what's left when the dust settles? A generation of women left wondering why their men are gone, why families are fractured, why the foundation is crumbling, crying for someone to come save them because it's all in the nature of women to bet on a man's world of safety to come to their rescue. Books that push them out to be more like men, brought to life for them to still need to depend on men. Such irony. But the truth is, you can't build a lasting empire alone. You truly don't have a purpose in life without children. You are never getting far with fighting the very men who protects your reality. You can't demand loyalty when you give none in return, and you can't have rights for everything you want if you don't want to be responsible for anything you do. No longer can you blame the men who walked away for refusing to be cast as villains in y'all's story. Women are left with the choices they have made, as you demanded it since the 50s. Since you no longer want to remember the women who built legacies with men, fell in line with men, and kept order, you would keep chasing illusions. An illusion that was sold into books and ads for your natural addictive consumption. Sold to your eagerness of the idea of options. The real strength is from women that has been lost, that was quieter. The real strength in women stood firm when everything else was betting on your family to fail. The real strength in women is something that lasted, not for applause or likes, but for those who come after. A legacy built with men in silence and sacrifice. That was the ultimate power worth reclaiming. But much damage has already been done. But what do y'all think? Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe to my channel. Click the notification bell to alert you for all my new videos. I thank you all for sticking around for my channel, and I appreciate y'all helping it grow. And as always, I thank you all for watching.